Last time on the Talk of the Town with Dave, Jay, and Beth.
We have the real Richard Hanna on the phone with us right now, I think. Richard, are you there?
Hey, I'm here, and it's me.
You made a big splash when you crossed party lines to support someone from outside your party for the presidency. Are you doing the same thing with regard to these congressional candidates, and will you make an endorsement?
I'm not sure. It's not like me to stay out of something like this. I certainly feel strongly that Ms. Tenney is not qualified for this job. She's somebody who's a serial candidate who's run many, many times for different jobs. I think 6 or 7.
Dave, Jay, and Beth, the Talk of the Town team. Weekday mornings, 6 to 10 on 100.7 FM, WUTQ.
That was from yesterday's show with Congressman Richard Hanna joining us on the Talk of the Town. Numbers to reach us, 624-0870 on the phone or the text line 6230373. And the subject of some of his comments, Assemblywoman Claudia Tenney in studio with us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
And I thought we'd play just a brief snippet of his comments yesterday and get your reaction to that, and then perhaps move forward into your candidacy for his seat, his congressional seat.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, in 2008, there were very few people standing there helping Richard Hanna run for office. I was one of them. I was running around, going to events, doing signatures for him. I did it again in 2010. I was there. Very few people were standing. More people were behind him in 2010. Richard Hanna stood there at all these Tea Party rallies and told them he was going to be their champion, and they worked their tails off for him and got him elected. And he was my best friend right up until I realized that he really wasn't carrying the Republican brand. Mm-hmm. And I challenged him in 2014 because he had no opponent. And ever since then, he has been on this hysterical rant against me. You have to ask him, why did he donate $1,000 to my campaign in 2010 when we were both elected? I was 50. And now I'm 55, so I had a full career as a lawyer and owning my family business. So he's saying I'm a career politician. I mean, look,
a serial candidate was the phrase
serial
used.
candidate. I ran for judge and lost. Mm-hmm. That's what I did. And so somehow that makes me a serial candidate. But he's run for Congress just as many times as I've run for Assembly, and I term limited myself. I like to say that I term limited Richard Hanna because the reason he's not running is because of me. And I think everyone should be asking, well, Richard, if you want to weigh in on this race and you want to criticize a local person who stood up against the establishment and had the rank and file and put me in office in both parties, mm-hmm. Democrat and Republican, why didn't you run for this? Why didn't you stay in and run? I mean, you have to ask, why are you weighing in? Mm-hmm. And I think, the number one thing that gets said to me on the campaign trail is how upset people are with Richard Hanna. People like me and many other Republicans who work very hard to get him elected. And I even donated money to Richard Hanna, which is kind of absurd. I mean, he's a multimillionaire. I don't even have anywhere near the kind of money he has, but I was donating, I was going door to door, I was working very hard for him, as were people throughout this district in every race. Mm-hmm. And so I think, everybody looks at him and says, what is this guy doing? And he says that he's independent and all this stuff. Look, this is the truth. I was in Washington Monday morning. There's no session. They're not in legislative session. Richard Hanna was there meeting with lobbyists because he bought a house in the capital area, the Washington area, for the future. Mm-hmm. He's on board with Hillary Clinton. He's hoping to probably get a job in her administration if she wins.
You suspect that's the case?
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's going to be part of the Washington elite, the Washington establishment. I mean, that's his plan.
He gave us the idea that he was maybe retracting himself from politics, and
that's not what everyone in Washington has to say. They're looking. He's out there working on his future in Washington.
Okay.
And Claudia, you did face him. Jesus, it feels like yesterday. I know you haven't had a chance to slow down, but you did face him, and it was pretty close. And you mentioned, I think, the money factor there. There was a lot of money thrown at that race, and I think he did fairly well when you look at the comparison there. I look at it now in describing the fact that you were both Republicans. How do you think that would weigh if Richard did stay in now? And have you had any conversation with him since that go around last time?
I've tried to go up to him and shake hands with him, mm-hmm. as I do with all the politicians, everyone. I mean, once you're elected, as I am elected now, I'm serving in office, we have to represent everybody, and you have to work with the people that you work. People say, "Oh, I don't work with people." That's not true. I mean, I'm trying to tell the truth about what's going on in Albany. I think one of the things that's critically important is that I term limited myself in the state assembly. I think people don't realize I could go in and probably have that crazy district that I have, which, by the way, was created to get rid of me by both parties. And I still was able to manage it. It cost me a lot of money to do that district, but I'm on a mission. I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to tell the truth.
The redistricting?
The redistricting.
Okay. In the assembly.
Right, in the assembly. And I think what people, I use my own money to be able to get around that district. I don't get reimbursed to drive up and down to Orange, Elster, Sullivan, Delaware, Otsego County. Otsego's close, actually. Mm-hmm. I don't get reimbursed for that. That comes out of my own pocket to do that district. I wasn't going to run for it, but understand something. I could have stayed in the assembly, and the assembly is giving themselves a monstrous 47% raise this year, which would lift my pension up if I had a pension to get, and all those great things. I'm walking away from it, and I'm actually fighting and voted against the increase in the wages. I have a bill in that would cut wages in half and cut session in half because I know how wasteful it is. So the one person who's actually stood out, probably in the entire state, fighting against the establishment, going against corruption, having the courage to do all this, is me. But yet Richard Hanna sits there and says, "Oh, you're a career politician." I mean, I've been in the assembly as long as Richard was in the Congress. I mean, that's silly to say that I'm a career politician.
Right, and that's kind of my idea. So there was no conversation after that. Okay, Claudia, I appreciate you, challenging me, but here we are, both Republicans.
No. This is all a sour grapes hysterical rant by Richard Hanna. I mean, I'm just saying it like it is. I mean, he would still be running for Congress if it weren't for me.
Mm-hmm. We're talking with Claudia Tenney, by the way, here on the Talk of the Town, 100.7 FM, WUTQ. Beth?
We were talking about it earlier before you got here, as to whether or not these types of things even matter. I mean, right now you're running a very competitive race for to replace Richard Hanna in Congress. I don't think anybody who has followed any politics in Oneida County is confused about the animosity might be too strong a word between you and Richard Hanna. Do these types of things, Richard's words yesterday, do they really have an impact?
They shouldn't matter at all. Richard is yesterday's news, and that's the National Republican Party is 100% behind me. They're supporting me in the race. They know how important it is to keep the seat Republican. And they're supporting me. I have support from across the district on all levels. I mean, all kinds of people are supporting me. I have people. I'm winning among independents. I'm winning among Republicans. It's very neck and neck, even in Democrats. I mean, because I'm from the region of the district where there's a lot of people. People know that they may not agree with me on everything, but they know that I'm going to try to tell the truth and I'm going to stand for something. And the one thing I've been fighting, which I find really interesting, is corruption. The cronyism. I've tried to stand for something, and Richard just goes on this rant and saying, "Oh, she's against Nano, she's against this, she's against that." Everybody knows, I've said it over and over, I'm trying to do the right thing and making Albany work better, making Washington work better. When you put out a huge omnibus bill and you have, unprecedented, unconstitutional power given to, say, Andrew Cuomo, if it were Donald Trump, you would be screaming if you were a Democrat. If there were a Republican, say, governor, everyone would be hysterical over the fact that billions of dollars are being put in his hand to spend the way he wants. I went actually yesterday, or I think it was Monday, I met with GE to talk about, are you guys still committed to this nano project? It's essential that you're committed. And they said, they called me back, they looked through, and it's GE is a massive organization. They said, yes, we are committed to this project, regardless, in spite of Andrew Cuomo's pay-to-play, the corruption and everything that's going on. And that's exactly what I've been fighting in Albany, which I'm going to do in Washington. But, for him to just say, I voted against a budget bill, which was the wrong kind of bill. It was given to us under a message of necessity. It was unfair to my constituents. In every case, you have to look at two things. Is this constitutional? Because I take an oath, like all of us do. And is it good for our district? I mean, it isn't good for our district to not have our voters have a chance to weigh in.
I had a text from Joe Moots, who you and I both know personally, and he was worried that you would have the chance or wouldn't have the chance to refute some of what Richard Hanna said. He, according to Joe's words, and he texted me, he said a lot of what he said is not true. Wanted to make sure you covered all of that ground. One of the things I think he said was that you had opposed something with regard to Binghamton University.
So there was a pharmacy, which is going to be a great thing in Broome County, but that was part of an omnibus budget bill that was passed under a message of necessity. That some of it was good, but it came in a budget bill which had a lot of other terrible things in it. It's like this year was a tough budget process. This past year, we had the education budget, which was really better than it's been in the past. coupled with things like the minimum wage increase and us imposing as a government a minimum wage on the farmers, for example, who are going to be devastated by this minimum wage increase. Not just farmers, social services organizations and many other organizations are going to suffer. And in addition, it's going to be a burden on the taxpayers because all the government agencies have to now increase their wages, even part-time work. It's going to hurt when government interferes in the marketplace. I think we should all have a high wage, but the question is, to what extent is government going to go in and pick winners and losers by getting involved in the wage battle? There were a number of other bad things in that bill, and so I voted no on the bill. I wasn't against the pharmacy school. I think the pharmacy school is great, but it's, again, when are we going, people say, when is somebody finally going to stand up and do what's right against them? And I do, and now I'm getting this huge campaign run against me because I'm doing exactly what the voters have said they want someone to do, and I've been able to push through and win by rank and file, as you've reported on. I don't get endorsed by the Republican establishment here. I don't get endorsed by the establishment, but I'm still winning with the rank and file overwhelmingly. I won by over 57% in the primary, just in Oneida County, and over 50 in Herkimer and Oswego, and places where people know that I'm fighting the fight. But we've consolidated our base. And it's interesting. I'm the one person that stands out, but you see the ads being run against me are completely duplicitous. They're describing me as a career politician, I'm part of the. It's fact. I have a really good friend who's a liberal Democrat. I was talking to you last night. I mean, liberal Democrat. He said, "I'm voting for you because I know what you stand for. I know you're a fighter and that you're independent." He said, "These commercials make me sick. There is one thing you are not. You are not an Albany insider. You are more outside of Albany than anyone I know. You've only gotten there by really just hard work and getting past the establishment."
That's my question actually for you. How do you push through that in one of these election processes here? Either by letting people know, hey, I voted, because a lot of times that's what you hear. She voted no for this, but you have a reasoning behind that. I voted no, but I am still in favor for the project. I just didn't like the way that it was presented or put together.
Exactly. Well, people say, the famous, if you keep doing things over and over expecting different results, that's the definition of insanity. I mean, I'm trying to say let's lead the way to do the right thing. But yet you get attacked. I find it interesting. Now I'm running against two people.
Well, they used an ad, and I remember this very well. There's a
These ads have been run for 2 years, by the way.
And there's a portion of you, and I remember this very well, when you stood up against, and I don't remember whom it was, but when it was something to do with the casino idea. I know you were very vocal in the crowd that day. You stood up to make your point, and now they're using that portion of the video where you're pointing to the individual.
Yeah, that's me standing up for Melvin Phillips, the genuine Oneida Indian who I've helped with my own time and money. Poor guy has nothing. He's fighting against, Halberter, who's got the Washington machine and the corrupt casino interest behind him. He's not helping our community. I mean, and that's and he's part of, fueling $1 million behind the campaign against me.
So how do you push through that to get your message?
We're trying. I mean, obviously I don't have the money that they have, but, I think what's really interesting is that I'm running against two people who are literally part of what's the problem in Albany and in Washington. It's about taking corporate welfare to the tune of tens of millions, both of my opponents, the so-called independent, who is a big Hillary donor, huge, he's probably more liberal, more cronyist, and involved in more pay-to-play schemes than even the Democrat in this race. Both of them are pay-to-play, cronyist, getting millions and millions in corporate welfare given to their businesses, which are both, neither one of them is incorporated in New York. My business is incorporated in New York for 70 years because they're getting tax benefits, offshoring jobs, and yet, here we are. I'm the one that's perceived the opposite way by the ads. So the ads are just unfair.
Claudia,
that's right.
We have phone calls. You want to take a couple phone calls?
Absolutely. Sure. Do I need to put this on?
Yeah, you'll need to put that on. Mike from Sequoia joining us on the Talk of the Town. Mike, you're on with Assemblywoman Claudia Tenney. Go ahead.
Hey, Claudia, how are you today?
Hi, great. How are you?
Good. The problem that I see with this is the same problem that Trump is running into. When people propose change to all this dirty politics that are going on all over the world, all of a sudden everybody gangs up on them because nobody wants to lose their full pockets, and nobody wants to all the deals that they've made. Trump is being blackballed by the political train the same way you are. They all got this idea that if she gets in or if he gets in, and blows the whistle on dirty politics in Washington, and you do it in New York State, which certainly we know in New York State there's plenty of. And this raise thing, I mean, who in this world would ever think if they could vote for their own raise? This has been a sore spot in me for a long time.
Mike, thanks for the call. We do have other calls to get to, but briefly, if you want to respond to that, Claudia.
Yeah, I mean it's similar. A similar situation. I've been fighting this battle. I just laugh when I see this. I'm an Albany insider. I mean, first of all, I'm a Republican in Albany, and we're outnumbered 107 to 43 in the state assembly. I mean, we really, honestly, we can't get a single bill passed, and a Republican bill has not passed without co-sponsorship in the state assembly with a Democrat since 1974. So I'm fighting. One thing I can't do is stop bills from coming to the floor, but I can fight corruption, and that's what I've been doing. I've been standing up and taking a risk. So
Phil from Westernville.
Thank you for the call.
Next on the Talk of the Town.
Right.
Phil, go ahead. You're on with Assemblywoman Claudia Tenney at 100.7 FM WUTQ. Phil?
How you doing today, everybody?
Doing
Claudia?
okay.
Hey.
First point I want to make, number one, Richie Hanna. We voted him in as a Republican to represent us. He has no right to go off the rail as a liberal at this point with our constituency supporting him as a Republican. I think that's way wrong. I know Richie. I've worked for Richie, and I'm very disappointed in where he's gone with this. Point number two. We talk about on the national level how foreign countries are not allowed to put money into our election system. Why is the United Indian Nation allowed to run this pact against Claudia? They think they get to have it both ways. They can play in our elections but not pay our taxes.
Well, Phil, let the Assemblywoman respond to that. We're short on time in this segment, so Claudia, go ahead.
Yeah, let me quickly say they're not a foreign nation. Every person that's born in the United States, whether they're Native American or not, is an American citizen, a state citizen. They're subject to all the laws of the state and the federal government. There's no different status. Ray Halberter wants everyone to think he's got a super citizen status. He has what's called a quasi-sovereignty type of it's like having a glorified Kiwanis Club, really, where they have some special rules and regulations. This works okay here where you have a complete dictatorship, but when you're in the rest of the country and other areas, unlike New York, you have a lot of Indian tribes where money goes to them, and what ends up happening is there are a lot of poor people who aren't getting their constitutional rights. So that's kind of what's ending up happening here, but he's an American citizen. He has a right to vote. He votes here. That's a myth that he wants to perpetuate. But, that's a First Amendment right. You have a right to participate in elections.